Detours. Brought to you by Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. There's little doubt that the sport of adaptive BMX is both challenging and dangerous, but neither of those things have stood in the way of 15-year-old Tom Woods, who recently captured his second straight title at the recently held WCMX Championships in Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Tom, first of all, you told me it was a pretty chilly week back there in Birmingham. How did that feel when you guys took falls on that concrete?
Definitely, yeah. It was not the warmest. One morning it was -6, so it wasn't very fun. We had to make a quick trip to Bass Pro, and we all bought like hunting thermals and stuff to wear while riding. So it was quite a stark contrast because the year before Worlds was in La Quinta in Coachella Valley, so it was opposite ends of the scale. So yeah, it wasn't the most fun, but.
Yeah, I would have to guess that the warm weather feels a little bit better on the bones when you hit the concrete, huh?
Yeah, it can do. It can do. Either way, falling on concrete's not the most fun, but not being cold does help.
Hey, Tom, let's jump right in. I noticed as I kind of bumped around online and learned more and more about you that you picked this up at a pretty young age. You were only really 11 years old when you started to dabble into this and learn about guys like, some of the icons from the sport, Aaron Forthingham, and people who are doing this already. How did you know right away that this was a sport for you?
I don't know. When I watched a few YouTube videos, I just thought it was really cool, to be honest. It's really different. I think something I've sort of come to find now, what's different about action sports and what attracts most people is like, it's really like you have to push it yourself. If you want to get better, if you want to learn the next trick, you have to put in that work, you have to put in that time, you have to accept the falls. It's not like, in some team sports, you got to work together to get to the goal, whereas this, it's like, it's all on you, you've got to make it happen. So I think it's really about being able to sort of push yourself.
No, exactly. And I was thinking about this with many other sports. There's opportunities to learn. If you're playing basketball, you miss a basket, you don't make your spin, you don't do something right. But in your sport, there's no half a commitment. If you're going to do something that's, you're going down a ramp or you're doing a grind, these are things that are solid commitments. I mean, when you're halfway in, there's no just jumping out and going, hey, time out.
Yeah. Well, definitely, and that's what's sort of different between something like WCMX and say BMX is obviously you can't like go and ditch. You kind of have to go down with it. So captain goes down the ship, if you will. So yeah, it definitely can make committing to things a bit more scary. But if you're gonna try something, there's a certain point where it's like you've prepared for it. You've just kind of got to go for it and hope for the best.
Over the course of just the 4 years or so that you've been involved in the sport, what were the things that you had to do right away that you noticed that you had to increase your possibility of increasing your score with the judges, do better at your sport? What were the definitive elements that you isolated?
Well, for me, especially in these past few years, and I've been working with my most recent coach, a guy called Benjamin Adzed. Something we've really focused on is just the flow of a skate park, because when you're doing a run, you've usually got, say, 3 to 4 big tricks, but you've got 1:30, so you've got to fill all that time rounding the skate park. So focusing on the flow and making sure that you can not only land your big tricks, but also do something interesting around that is something that we've really taken a big focus on.
Okay, so in that 1:30, what are some of the things that you've chosen to focus on? You said you tend to lean towards 3 or 4 specific things. What are your specialties, and how is it that you've gone about developing them so that you max out your score?
Well, right now we've got a few different tricks that we're liking a lot. So one of the tricks is a scooter handplant, which is where you go up, usually to a bigger quarter, and you push your body into it. It kind of feels like you're front flipping into the quarter, but you put your hand against the quarter and spin out of it. That's a trick we're really liking at the minute, and really I suppose just a mix of sort of larger park features and more technical tricks. And it's one of those things where it's literally just I ride almost every day. So it's just one of those things where it's literally just practice.
So I saw, when you and I were exchanging messages, that you have a couple of elements that you really like. One is called the scooter head plant,
Yeah.
and another one's called mini ramp lines.
Yeah.
So kind of educate us a little bit. What specifically are these things, and what are the complexities, even more so, about how to do them in a wheelchair? I mean, I sort of get the picture with skateboarding or using a BMX bike, but what's the adaptation?
So scooter handplants is what I was just talking about, and then a mini ramp line. So a mini ramp is it's kind of like a half pipe, but it's normally a bit smaller. So normally it's 2/4, and they're usually between like 1 and 4 foot, and they're identical with a small bit of flat in the middle, and you're literally just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on them. So it's you really got to be able to hold your flow, have really good kick turns, and be super technical with it. So when you're riding it, you're literally just going back, and back, as you're going, back and forth across the mini ramp. So it's something that it kind of forces you to have really good flow and to have really precise technical tricks to be able to pull them out on the quarter and then flow immediately back, because there isn't any time to gain speed or to pump or anything. You've literally just got to make sure each trick is perfect. Otherwise, you're not going to make it to the next one.
Describe a scooter head plant, because you say that that's one of your favorites that seems to score the best for you.
That's what I was just talking about a minute ago. So the scooter hand plant is the one where you go up to the quarter and put your hand out and spin off. The reason it's called that is because a normal hand plant is where you go up the quarter forwards and you lean back as you're going up and put your hand on the quarter and let the chair come above you. And in BMX and in scootering, they do it often the other way, where they put their hand out in front of them and let the scooter come up behind. So they're the kind of differences. So we've just sort of named that scooter hand plant because my coach is a scooter rider.
Got it. So what are the primary concerns when it comes down to injury? I mean, there's obviously, you're hitting the ground pretty hard from time to time. What percentage of the time does this work out, and what percentage of the time do you end up hitting the ground pretty hard?
Well, obviously, we take safety quite seriously, but with action sports, injuries are sort of bound to happen. It's sort of part of the course, if you will. But I wear a full face helmet, I wear elbow pads, knee pads, and gloves. So we try and avoid it where possible. But I think the main thing is understanding how to fall without getting hurt, because oftentimes to learn a trick, you have to be able to just give it a try and see what works and what doesn't. So understanding, if I fall onto my knee pads, they have like plastic on the front, it's going to slide, especially on wood. So as long as you can make sure you're landing on your pads, you can take out a big chunk of it, and just making sure that you can just slide for as far as possible to take that inertia out of the fall. Because like on, say, the scooter hand plant, when you're going at it, you're trying to figure out, where do I need to put my hand? How do I need to move my shoulders? Where am I pushing my head in?
When you take a fall, it seems to me like there's a technique involved in even going down. So do you work on or consider what the possibilities are when you're about to take a fall?
Yeah, definitely. So like before I try a trick, it's sort of like, okay, this is what's going to happen if it goes well, and then if it doesn't, am I going to try and fall forward? Am I going to try and fall sideways? You never really want to fall back, because if you're falling back, you got to try and put your hand behind you and stuff. It can get a bit sketchy. So you always want to try and fall forward if you can. So it's just understanding how best to fall in that situation, and it's something we practice fall training somewhat often, and just understanding, okay, how can we do this in a safe manner? But also when trying new tricks, you can also have spotters. So like if you're trying to rail or something, you can have somebody stood next to you just to help guide you on, especially if you're doing like a transfer to rail. And then also we also use crash mats. So if you're using something that's quite high off the ground and you're not sure if you're going to make it, if you fall off, at least then you're not slamming straight into the wood.
Gotcha. Okay, so you have 2 runs of 1 minute and 30 seconds. When you go out there, do you attempt to have your best run the first time so that you can cut loose a little bit more the second time? Or is one a fallback? How do you approach your 2 different rides?
Well, there's a lot of different strategies, and I think every rider has a slightly different outlook on it. But I think the most common is your first run is your safety run. You want to make sure you can land almost every trick in it. Every time you fall, you can get deducted points. So you want to try and fall as little as possible, really. So what a lot of riders do is their first run will be, that's their safety run. They know they can land everything in it. They know they can make it clean. And then on the second run, it's like, okay, we can take a few more chances here. We know we've got solid points down. Let's see how we can progress from there. And then especially in comps that have best trick as well, you can also have a bit more leeway.
We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Sports and Spokes Magazine. For nearly 50 years, they've produced stories on iconic athletes performing at the top of their game, given generational coverage of sports dating back to the 1970s, and they've shown the way with exciting and timeless magazine cover shots. To stay on top of all the latest news from the world of high-performance adaptive sports, go to sportsandspokes.com. Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. So I'm just looking at the sport from a couple of different standpoints. When you look online, you see what guys like Aaron Forthingham have done. They spend a lot of time going down particularly steep ramps, doing very, I don't know, I hesitate to call them circus-like acts, but it's pretty ludicrous. I mean, they're going 30 miles an hour down a ramp and doing double backflips and whatnot. Do you like that aspect of the sport, or do you, in some ways, is that sort of like a surfer who does big wave riding? Is a little too intense?
I almost consider mega ramps different to WCMX. It obviously is a part of it, but there's no mega ramps in competitions. So myself, I use mega ramps as a tool to learn aerial tricks. So at Greystone in Manchester, where I train in the UK, they have a 25-foot mega ramp with a foam pit and a resi. So if I'm trying to learn a new spin trick, say a 540, I try it into there. I know I'm going to have lots of airtime. I know if I land, I'm going to land into foam, so it's not going to hurt that bad. And it's more of a tool to actually learn the tricks. And then there's the other side of people who are like mega ramp riders, if you will. So like Aaron, obviously he rides for Nitro Circus now. So he goes and he does the tours. And for that, it's like, I suppose it is kind of like a circus of, he's there to go and do a crazy flip or spin trick on the mega ramp in a stadium for all the guests and the people that they're doing the shows with. So I suppose it is kind of different to your sort of traditional WCMX or comp WCMX.
So with every sport, especially with the adaptive sporting world, the chair is kind of everything, you becoming one
Definitely.
with the chair. So you have been racing, or not racing, you've been doing your tricks and your stunts in a chair made by Tom Finch. And you said that it's really helpful having a guy who actually is a chair
Definitely.
user. So that probably in many ways translates over to someone who listens to you a little bit better when you're saying, this could be a little bit better, this could be a little bit tighter, a little bit wider, whatever. So do you work hand in hand with Tom?
Yeah. I've been riding the Finch chairs now for almost coming up on 3 years. And, the chairs are just different, as I was saying, obviously, he's a wheelchair user, so he understands how a chair should feel, how a chair should work. So it gives you like a sort of really good starting point. But also, like, he's got so much experience fabricating and stuff. Like, I'll often just say to him, like, what would happen if we did this, or what would happen if we had that? And his chairs now, like, he's been making them for so long. He initially started with, unfortunately, he passed away. A guy called Blake, and he was a fantastic rider. So he initially started developing the chairs with him. And then I've been working with him now for, as I said, almost coming up 3 years. And we've taken the chairs just like to that next level. We've got a bucket, which is off the sit ski. So essentially, rather than having a conventional seat with a backrest and two sides, it actually bends in as you tie down the ratchets, which means if I want to jump, I can pull up my shoulders, and my shoulders are pulling up, right? Wherever my head and my shoulders are going, the chair has to follow. But if it's attached to me even tighter than a standard chair, well, it's going to come with me that bit quicker, which means you can then do whatever trick you want to do, whether that be a 180 flat or whatever. And it's the same with, doing spin tricks. If I'm trying to spin, you don't want to be turning and then hitting the chair and turning. You just want to turn. So having that bucket's made a huge difference. And then, just like little things every time we get a new chair, we just try and make that little bit stronger and change that little thing. And it's like little things. So on the fork stem, every WCMX chair uses the same fork stem as a standard wheelchair, which is a 1/4 inch, I think. But it doesn't last. It's fine when you're in the day, but if you're bashing that every time you fall, a 1/4 inch of metal, it's not a lot.
Sure.
And so Tom, you said, well, why don't we make it thicker? So we did. We now run 5/8, and then we realized if you have a hole through the middle, you can make it stronger again. So we did that, and now I haven't broken a fork stem in quite a while, which is mad because when I was riding the old ones, I was breaking one a week. So it's, a huge difference. And, Tom always says, like, he wants people who ride his chairs to be able to go to the skate park to ride, not to ride and then work on their chairs and then work on the chairs and then ride, So riding his chairs, it's made a world of difference.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I could tell by looking at the pictures, the way the bucket encompasses your legs. I mean, it rolls up over, and then you have the same ratcheting device that we see so often in basketball, in skiing, and so many in tennis. Being one with the chair is just probably everything to you.
To be honest, I don't understand why people in basketball or tennis or whatever haven't started using buckets, because I can just imagine the difference it could make for their performance. Being able to turn without touching the wheels. Every time you touch the wheels, you're obviously making friction against that metal as it slides through. So if you can turn just by pulling your body, you're not going to make as much friction, and therefore you're going faster. You can imagine the difference that would make in so many different sports.
Hey, Tom, this kind of begs one more question about the chair. So with basketball, we notice that they use a maximum amount of camber for spin and turn. Is there an amount of camber that you put in your chair that you notice helps you to perform to your maximum capability?
I use zero camber. I don't like
zero camber.
Camber's great for turning. I've used chairs like basketball chairs, which are like 30 degrees or whatever. Sorry, you go. And
no. That was my question. So why no camber?
So like I've used the chairs which have lots of camber, and when you turn, you can feel it's kind of got like, I guess I kind of feel like the G-force of the chair, like as it turns, and it is great because you can turn really quick. But I don't know, when you're landing, you want to be able to go forward, and it does impede that. I also find that when it's straight, it's a hell of a lot easier to do one wheels. So if you want to go up onto one wheel, or if you want to hop and land sideways and spin out of it in a one wheel, you can't do that with camber. And also the camber, it's more awkward to push with. When you got a straight wheel, for me, like I can start getting it. When you start pushing with the straight wheel, for me, I can just get my whole body into it, and I can just get power down, power down, power down. With a cambered wheel, I don't know, I always find because it's turned, it's more awkward to push with. So I don't know, zero camber's just always worked better in the skate park for me.
All right, man. So not to expose your 2025 plans, but any new tricks, any new things that you've got on the drawing board that we may see next year?
Well, we have a book, me and my coach, and it's like our dream trick list. And every time we come up with something, we write it down. So I think we'll definitely see lots of different tricks. I don't know what we'll land yet, but what I can say is we're definitely going to progress all the stuff we've got now. So like just before I came to America, we were working on a new trick called a fork stall, which is where you go up to the coping, which is the metal on the top of a quarter pipe, and you go up and you stall on the forks on top. So we're definitely going to progress that and progress all the other worldies we got this year. And I know we're hopefully going to go and see more countries. This year we were in all across the UK. We went up Scotland, everywhere. We went to Germany, Jersey and the Channel Islands, across America. And hopefully we'll do even more next year.
So lastly, I know that you're pushing a lot to try and see this become a Paralympic sport. What's the potential? Do you see, are you getting some pretty good grumblings in the background? Are people talking about it? Is the sport on the rise to the point where you could foresee this becoming a Paralympic sport?
I'm not allowed to say too much about this, which is a good sign because it means somebody's told me I can't talk about it. But there's definitely, people are talking. And we're looking better than we were a few years ago. What I can say is we've seen what happened to skateboarding, and we've seen what happened to freestyle BMX with joining the Olympics. It's been huge for both those sports. In the UK, there's been so many campaigns after joining the Olympics that SPGB have done with Subway, with Samsung, and all the different things that have happened to skateboarding and how much the sport has grown. There's definitely good things in the future for WCMX.
Well, you're a two-time champion, Tom. I'd really like to thank you for coming in. A lot of great insights, and I really anticipate that you're going to help to elevate the sport to the next level.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that, and thanks for letting me come on.